Is writing a check a good work? The more successful people get, writing a check's pretty easy. I think the answers are, well, one, Jesus didn't call us to do anything because something was in it for me. And that's a theological problem. And you've got an issue with your relationship with Jesus. And it was almost like that churchy's, well, God's just going to take care of it, right? It's going to be fine. We're going to pray and God's going to provide. And maybe I'm just the worst Christian on earth, but some days it doesn't feel like God's providing. Like I was on food stamps a while ago. I had to borrow money to pay the mortgage payment one day. Adam, thanks so much for joining us this morning on the podcast. I am very, very, very excited to be talking about today's topic.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Adam and I have been noodling. We met a while ago now, and we've been spitballing together for what seems like way too long, but it's probably only been about a year, right? On and off.
Yep.
We've been talking, and both of us are noodling around ideas that have a lot of overlap. We've got very similar hearts. And so, one day we sat having some hot chicken in Franklin, Tennessee, and I think that's when I was first talking to you about this idea that became Kicks. In my head, you were talking about some of the things you were thinking of, and we kind of had this realization, well, okay, maybe there's a way we can play ball together. And so we spent the last few months toying with what could this look like? What could this become? What we've come up with is something that's called the Kingdom Impact Exchange. And in a nutshell, this all started because my wife and I started a business about 10 years ago. We're in the co-working business here in Houston, Texas. And we opened the business and we created a nonprofit at the same time. And we thought, we're not really built for the church world and politics and religion and all that kind of fun stuff, but we want to do some cool stuff for Jesus. My life's goal was to make a dent in the world for Jesus. Just a little one, okay? I'm not saying it has to be a big one. So we started this business and we thought we'd nailed it. Like we thought we'd cracked the master plan. We'd figured it out. We're going to have a business. We're going to take the profits and we're going to move a bunch of them over here to nonprofit and we can go do some really cool stuff. And I don't need to get a vote. I don't need to ask permission. Like I can just do whatever. And that's what we've done for 10 years. And it's been cool and it's been fun. But I started to realize that maybe I wasn't quite as smart as I thought I was. And so that's where Adam and I started to talk a little bit. And I realized that another friend of mine challenged me and said, Mike, you're kind of being a little selfish here. We were looking at a project that was a little bit bigger than we'd done before. And I was trying to figure out how to do it on my own. And it was too big for us to do. And she said, well, maybe you're not supposed to do it on your own. Maybe you're supposed to take some other folks along for the ride with you. And that stuck with me and it started to resonate, And then I think the second thing was we were approaching it from, we've built a business that generates profit. We'll use that and we'll go and do some cool things here, there, wherever. But what if you could turn this around and actually find a cool thing that you want to do first and then build business around that and essentially give that business to the thing? And so it becomes the economic engine. It becomes the self-sustaining driver of the thing that you want to do, whether it's children's homes, clean water projects, schools, whatever. And so Adam's going to dive in here and give some of his perspective. And then we're going to start talking about this in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, it's exciting. I spent 10 years in vocational ministry background and working in churches, and then 10 years kind of building businesses and tech. And often it felt confused. Like, who am I? I sit at this intersection of ministry and marketplace. And are they different? Are they the same? Am I supposed to not do business and not build anything so that I can go serve in a certain capacity, or am I supposed to just work in this one vocation as a Christian? And I just wrestle with all these questions of calling and purpose, and then started to meet other guys that were wrestling with similar questions of like, am I where God wants me? Is this all that I was supposed to do? And so when you and I met and started talking, I first heard you talking about this concept and reached out, and crazy how God like orchestrated all of that. But, sitting down and going, man, there's other people thinking about how do we leverage marketplace as a place for ministry. And it's not separate. It's not, oh, I was in ministry and now I'm in marketplace. It's, using the marketplace to do the work of the kingdom and to advance the work of the kingdom in people's lives. And I've just loved our conversation as we've just started to dream of what does that actually look like to go make an impact in the world through the lens of our experiences and our skill sets and what we've built, not for selfish gain, but genuinely for kingdom. And I think there's a lot of people. I would meet people that would talk about this, and I'm like, I don't think you and I are talking about the same thing because it's just another version of you as a Christian in the business marketplace
Yeah.
world,
Yeah.
but it's not changing your end goals. Your end goals are still um, profit to and I'm not saying that's bad. I just like it tended to be still selfish, still self-centered, um, not really about kingdom advancement. Until I met Mike and I went, oh, this guy's talking about a different thing. And so I'm excited to see what other people are out there in the world that are thinking about this in a different way.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the core goals, right, of what we're trying to build here. So we call it KICS for short, Kingdom Impact Exchange. But I think one of the goals is recognizing, the Bible is clear. One can slay a thousand, two can slay 10. That this idea of community and collaborative work together really moves people further and probably faster as well than if they're on their own. And I think layered in with that, just as business guys, as entrepreneurs, Adam's obviously built some cool stuff, way cooler than me. I built some little itty bitty stuff. But as business guys, we all recognize the winners, the companies that really do well, the Apples of the world, the Microsofts of the world. You look at their leadership teams, you look at the people that got together early on and started to build these things. And it was a real collective of just great people that complemented each other's strengths and weaknesses. And so when I think about that, and I think about Jesus, I think about kingdom, right? Go make disciples. We talk about this a lot, and everybody thinks, okay, evangelism. Yeah, we've got to go save people. 100%. One of the core requirements of any Kicks project, you're going to hear this as we go through the conversation, is an evangelistic element. So we're 100% behind it. The second thing that's been really big in the church, I think, has been discipleship, teaching, education, helping people grow. Again, great, absolutely need it. Not saying we don't. And that's two legs of the stool. But I think the third leg of the stool that's maybe been a little bit overlooked or not emphasized as much is actual practical help and impact. Jesus tells this parable in Matthew 25, and he says, if you see someone who needed something to drink and you didn't give it to them, like you're not coming in.
Mm.
I needed something to eat. I needed a shirt on my back, and you could have done something to help and you didn't. Like, I don't know you. And I read something like that and I think, okay, hang on a second, like time out. Is he actually saying these are people who literally said, but Lord, like I did this in your name, I did this in your name, and like this sounds like Christians to me. And I've had this debate with somebody who said, oh no, he's not talking about believers. I'm like, dude, okay, come on. These people literally said, like, in your name, I did these things. So it kind of
Mm.
sounds like they are. And he's like, yeah, but you didn't live out love. Like you didn't live out. You had the capacity and the capability to do something to help, but you didn't do it. Like that's a real problem. And so
Mm.
I think in business terms, I think about myself selfishly. I think about this project in Africa that we were looking at, and it was too big for us to do. And it's like, okay, if I'd have had a dream team that I could have gone and done it with, if I'd have had somebody that really understood Africa, somebody who really understood farming and agriculture in Africa, someone else who really understood construction, because it was a vocational school we were trying to build. Sure, I could have got there on my own eventually, but it wouldn't have been as good. It wouldn't have been as polished. It wouldn't have been done anywhere near as efficiently. It would have taken a whole lot longer, and I probably would have wasted some money making mistakes. But if I'd have had a dream team from the get-go, man, we could have had this thing nailed, done and dusted, up and running. And now we are changing the lives of people. We are creating, because people don't want handouts, they need opportunity. But they need that exchange of dignity, right? Where we say, hey, instead of me helping you today, why don't I help you for the rest of your life? Why don't I give you some skill? Why don't I develop you so that you can sustain yourself? And then we can go do it again and again and again. And so when we think about kicks and the idea of these project-based implementations where we want to bring a community, a collective of high capacity leaders, of
Mhm.
entrepreneurs and business owners. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about instead of trying to do it all by ourselves, what if we could do it together? What if
Mhm.
six people over here could go and do these three amazing things and do them really, really well? And they can share the load, they can share the burden, and they can share the cost and the investment, right? Because
Mhm.
we have to invest into kingdom. We might not get a return on it in a natural, we might in a spiritual sense, but maybe that investment's enough to create this sustainable economic engine that once it's going, that flywheel is perpetual and it lives forevermore. Um, that's kind of the way that I'm thinking, through these things in my mind, Adam. But like chime in, and layer us up here.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of us, it's like we have ideas, we have dreams, we have ways we want to make impact, but we don't want to do it alone. And so, what does it look like to collaborate, to bring others together to go do, and so that we're in a community of brothers or sisters that are all moving in a direction, making an impact, and not for the sake of building a new venture. There are tons of platforms out there that will help you build new ventures. They're awesome, and they'll do it for kingdom work, and all of that's great. I think what makes this unique is that this isn't about a new venture that's benefiting us. It's how do we just create vehicles that drive kingdom impact long term with others in a collaborative way where smart people come together, bring their expertise, and move ideas forward. But then we don't just leave. And I think so many of our, missions is awesome. I love going on missions. Missions changed my life. I look forward to my kids going into countries and participating in activity. But how do we continue to fund these things ongoing for a longevity of actual life change for the long haul and actual create economic sustainability in these areas that we're going into, as opposed to maybe just one project? So that's really kind of the heart behind what are we trying to build here?
Yeah. And so I think, let's try and answer some questions a little bit because we officially launch in September. So if you're watching this early on, you're actually hearing us talk about this before we've launched. And even when we launch, it's kind of like a beta launch. Like we don't have this all figured out. We've been working on this for a while, but we also really want to understand from the people who start to join the community, you know, in what ways are you feeling unfulfilled? Like, are you waking up? Because I know I do. Like, we've been involved in a bunch of cool things, but I wake up and I think, yeah, but I didn't do anything. The Bible says that God made good works for me to do. And
Hmm.
is writing a check a good work? I hate to say this, and I don't mean it disrespectfully at all, but the more successful people get, writing a check's pretty easy. Like
Hmm.
it is. If you're doing 10 million a year and you're writing a check for $500,000, like it sounds like a lot of money. And look, I'm sure Jesus is grateful, and I am too if it's going to the kingdom. Like, pat on the back, I'm cheering you on. But let's just be honest, you're probably still doing okay. Um, the bigger those numbers get, the bigger the gap or the delta between when is it affecting my lifestyle versus when is it not affecting my lifestyle. Did I go without to do something for the kingdom here? And I'm not saying you have to, I'm not saying you don't have to, I'm not getting into all that at all. But I think one of the questions that I've tried to get my head around and we tried to get our heads around as we thought about this, do people wake up feeling like, yeah, I don't feel fulfilled? All right,
Hmm.
I helped fund this school over here. I helped fund this clean water project over here. But did Mike grow through that? Like, did I get closer to Jesus? Because I didn't do anything. And I think there's a gap there. I could
Hmm.
be wrong, but I think there is. And I think that's a gap we're trying to fix here with the Kicks community is if you're feeling that way and you feel like, hey, I want to do some good works, you know?
Yeah.
Well, great. Let's do it together. And we'll give you a framework and a safe space to do it, surrounded by some people who've done it before, some people who've got great connections, who can help you plug the gaps that you don't have so that you can then become everything that God designed you to be. And you can step into that destiny that He's got for you and grow closer to Him as a result of putting yourself out there and going beyond money. I think of it, I say like it's about more than money, right? It's about intelligence, it's about skill set, it's about competence. And one of the things I love about Adam, um, like he didn't know me. Yeah, I just kind of talk about this stuff and hope that somebody, thinks I'm not crazy. But he's been willing to give his time and his energy, like his value to this. If he'd have just said, Mike, I'll cut you a check and help Kicks get going, it would have been nowhere near as valuable as the intelligence and the experience he's been able to bring to the table as we've worked on these things together. And even in that little microcosm, that's exactly what we're trying to build and live out through Kicks. Yeah, we get that, it takes money to make stuff happen, but this is about so much more than that. Um, and so I think, Adam, that's one of the first things as a question I think that I want to try and understand in the lives of other people and hear some answers to, are there folks out there that think the same thing?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people out there that are building great businesses in the world. They're doing awesome work. They've acquired a skill set. They've been successful in whatever lens you want to look at that through. And they're still asking, is this it? Is this it? Like, um, maybe it's a sense of unfulfillment or not living out purpose, or it's just like, a desire to be engaged in bringing good into the world. And the only option for you is to give some money. But what does it look like to actually get involved? And, not in an unhealthy way, but to actually maybe even reserve some of what you give in these other capacities, whether it's in your business or carve off a portion of that time or energy or money to leverage building something that actually becomes a vehicle for good in the world.
Yeah, so okay, so then that leads to the next question, right? And I've heard this already, and I hear people say it all the time, but my hands are already full. Like I don't have any spare time. I don't have any bandwidth to get involved in something else. That's why I'm comfortable just giving and writing a check. Like, what do you say to that, dude?
I get it. And we're busy and we have families and the reality is that we're giving of that extra time and energy in so many different ways. Maybe it's in the sports activities that our families and overly busy involved in. That's why you don't have time. It's not because you're business. It's because you don't know how to not have five different travel sports going on at the same time. Or maybe it's my own golf game that I'm terrible at and I'm trying to get better at. But it's looking at like, where in my life can I actually carve out more capacity to do the things that actually light me up and give and fill me up. I actually call it recharge. I think it's an opportunity for recharge, not exhaustion. There's a balance there and a dance, and I don't pretend to know that answer, but when we're giving in a way that's actually giving to others and building others up, we actually find more life.
Yeah.
When we live for ourselves and just build our own kingdoms, at some point that's empty. We find life and we come truly alive when we're building others up and we're giving our lives away for others. That's where we will find life. The kingdom of God is opposite.
Yeah.
Uh, the disciples fought for who would be the highest. Can I sit on your left and on your right? And Jesus said, wash feet. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Like you go down to go up. You serve, you give away to build, to grow in significance. And so it's an upside down model, and it requires an upside down thinking that I think a lot of us, have just been curating in the American mindset of this for far too long, and we don't do it much different in as Christians in business. So, not saying we have the answer, just trying to ask some of those questions of what does it look like to do this a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think I'd layer in there, just a little bit of practical consideration as far as the community goes, and a kind of person that we think we're hoping will want to be a part of this. Obviously, we're happy to help anybody that's got, a heart for impact, who loves business, who loves entrepreneurship, because we're trying to build solutions that are based around business and entrepreneurial, solutions to create those engines. We think that's a skill set we want to bring into the community. Obviously, high capacity leaders, you might be, senior level at someone else's business, and that's great too. But I think ideally, the folks who are really going to thrive and be able to help us deliver some of the most meaningful projects and answers to problems out there are going to be people who have probably built something meaningful themselves and seen some success themselves. And so I think my question, if somebody says to me, Mike, I'm so busy, I'm running a big business, I've got a ton of staff, I've got all these things going on. I think my question back would be, okay,
Mm.
if you're doing that well, surely you could afford to hire a little bit of bandwidth for you. And what I mean by
Yeah.
that is there's probably things you could delegate as a leader to someone else, and you might not have that person in your team. So you might need to hire a little bit of overcapacity to free up some of your time and your capacity to be able to give to kingdom. And I don't think that's a bad thing because
Yeah.
essentially you're investing something that's worth more than money. And God's going to see that and God's going to respond to that and God's going to recognize that. Or it might be that you hire in somebody who is community focused or missional focused. I mean, if you're doing, I don't know, 5 million bucks a year or 10 million bucks a year, you can afford to have a full-time member of your team whose only role in life is to figure out how your business delivers impact, whether it's
Mm.
in the local community, whether it's in the greater community. Like you are plenty big enough to be able to absorb that cost. And again, that's a form of giving to kingdom. It's not wasted money. You're not decreasing that profitability at the end of the year for no reason. Like God's going to see that and he's going to honor that. And I think he's going to respond to that. And I'm not saying, oh, if you do this, your business is going to get bigger. I don't play that game. Like
Yeah.
we give because we love Jesus. And if we get nothing back in exchange for it, that's totally okay. He's already given us more than we're ever going to get. So don't misunderstand that theology at all.
Yeah.
I'm just saying practically, how is he not going to look at that and smile? And
Yeah.
if I can make God smile, dude, just for a minute, I'm probably good with that, right?
Yeah, and it's not just, obviously he smiles because he created us and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's we're enough in that. But this is, you know, our opportunity to just continue to go, man, there are a lot of problems in the world. There's a lot of opportunity in the world and a lot of need. And how is that getting addressed today? And how are our funds being used to address those issues today? And is it working? Is there more we can do?
Yeah.
And and how do we continue to build the uh the kingdom and not just our own kingdom? And so I think that is an opportunity and an invitation to, as the Bible says, that heaven is coming to earth, like to bring heaven to earth.
Yeah.
Like this is an opportunity to help the world flourish. And some want to do that in a way that they financially profit, and that's great. And I think this is an opportunity to go like, dude, how do we just build engines that fund projects ongoing?
Yeah.
Um, and it's a form of us giving our time and our expertise away for that.
Yeah. And I think giving it away for that, and towards something that will outlive us, right? It will
Yeah,
outlive
exactly.
us instead of being limited by how much longer can I keep hustling, grinding kind of thing and
Yeah,
keep this business going, so that currently this is my economic engine. But what happens if this is gone? And
yeah,
and also how is this directly benefiting the people I'm trying to help? Like I can't create jobs here that's going to help somebody in India or in Cambodia. Like I've got to create something over there if I want to create opportunities and income opportunities for them and give them some sustainability and that kind of stuff.
mm,
But I can take the principles and the concepts that I've learned here, and apply them over there. So, hey, one of the things we want to do on this season of the podcast is include real world questions from you, the listener, my audience. I want to answer what it is that you're asking about doing business God's way, about being a kingdom entrepreneur, about how this people profit purpose thing works. So, at Real Mike Thakur, Instagram, Twitter, like drop me a DM, or if you want to send an email, do it the old fashioned way, info@mikethakur.com. Ask me your questions. We're going to feature some of the best ones on later episodes in the season. If we get a lot of them, we might even do a big Q&A session or even go live, which is what I'd really like to do. And then we can all have some fun together. So send me those questions, drop me those DMs, and let's figure this out together. So let's think of some other questions that people might be wondering. And maybe this is a good time to talk about, the larger part of the community, because we've really been talking a lot about the builders, the doers, right? Which is really the core community. That's what we're trying to, that's who we're trying to attract. If you're listening to this and wondering, hey, do I fit in? If you've got a heart for doing something for Jesus and you've got some capacity and some skill and some competence and some resources behind you, yeah, like that's a great fit. But what about the folks who can't do or don't right now have the ability to do, but they like what they're hearing,
Mm,
and they want to back it. They want to get
yeah.
involved. Hey, you building a vocational school in Africa? Well, dude, I love education. Right now my hands are full with X, Y, Z, and I just can't create some capacity. But God's been speaking to me about this, and I want to back this bad boy. How do I get involved with that?
Mhm.
What does that look like, Adam?
Yeah. Well, we have builders and backers. And so the builders we just talked about, the backers are those that want to fund some of these economic vehicles, So there's a particular project we want to fund. We want to give to that, or we want to fund, Kicks as an organization to help find these projects, build these teams, and create these vehicles. And so there's a couple of ways to get involved in backing that, but we believe that everybody plays a role in building these economic engines and these basic entrepreneurship projects. And they do take funding. It's not going to happen for free.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we can carve out certain capacity. Yes, we can leverage a percentage of our businesses to fund these projects. But there are some people that are like, hey, let me help us do that at a different scale, or for the long haul. Maybe we'll fund 3 years of this engine and what it takes to actually build it. So there's a number of ways to get involved, that being one of them.
Yeah, that's so good. And obviously, we don't want to exclude anybody, right? In the things that we're doing. All we're trying to really create is this community where we can be as helpful as possible to help you, the community members grow into that calling that God has for you, to grow into
Yeah.
those good works that God has for you. And we're just recognizing that for some people, they may be so knee deep in three different things. They may be 2 years away from being able to create that bandwidth where
Yeah.
they can then start to be a doer as well. And we just don't want to exclude anybody. We want you to feel welcome. We want you to feel invited in. But that all said, this is not a donation platform. This isn't a place where, a nonprofit's going to come and say, hey, I want to do this. I need to raise $500,000. I'm looking for some donors. No, this is a platform where our active members will be actively involved in making these things happen, in delivering and implementing, overseeing like every area. And I think that leads me to another thing, because you might be wondering, okay, well, surely someone else is out there doing that, or at least in some kind of guise. If there is, I really haven't come across it, not in the way that we're trying to build this, but we've talked, Adam, and my heart, and we want to kind of lay this out from the get-go, but we really, really believe in transparency and trust. Um, as higher capacity people, as people who've seen a little bit more success maybe than average, I think for both of us, we've both seen situations or come across examples where that trust has been broken or that transparency hasn't been there. And you all hear the stories. I'm not going to get into it. That's not what we're about. But we just thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this differently? Wouldn't it be cool if we could do this and maybe push that level up a little bit higher and really set a standard of what does that transparency look like, particularly if we've got backers involved, but even if we haven't, if there's 5 people involved in a project or 10 people involved in a project and they're all giving time and energy, maybe they're leveraging their teams and bringing them in for some of these elements as well. Maybe they're leveraging relationships with partners. We don't want anybody to ever find themselves with egg on their face, that something went wrong, that somebody made a bad call. So we're layering in oversight from the get-go, from within the Kicks team. So every project and every mini community within the larger community or micro community within the macro community, however you want to say it, there'll be oversight there. There'll be structure in place and discipline. There'll be accounting principles that are trusted, and it'll be fully transparent. The goal is for every single dollar that goes into Kicks in any way, shape, or form, whether as a backer, whether as a builder going into a project, whether you're part of a team in a micro community, doing something, we want to see just how transparent can we make it so that you can follow that dollar all the way through to the end result and be able to
Yeah.
see, okay, that dollar became $10. And here's the real world, example of all of the impact and all of the growth it was able to deliver. Don't know how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Um, got a friend who's a really, really smart financial guy from a really, really high-end, background. And he doesn't, I think he kind of knows it because I joked with him once, but I'm trying to get him onto the Kicks team. Everybody that's been helping us figure all this out, like we're all just, we're living this out. We're donating time, we're donating energy, resources.
Yeah.
There's no money in this. There's no venture backer making this thing happen. The goal isn't to build something that creates a profit so we can all get dividends out at the end of it and all that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, I mean, what do you think, Adam? Is it, can we pull it off? Is it doable? Do you think people are going to resonate with that? Do you think people are asking that question at all?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the adventure and what I love is of building things is we don't know and we're building an idea, we're building something that's in our heart. Obviously people want to build ideas. Obviously there's people out there that want to make impact in the world and we're just bringing those two hearts together, like people that love to make ideas real and make things real and those that want to make an impact in the world. And I know that there's people out there that want to do both of those things and there's historic vehicles that will allow people to do that. There's great incubators out there that'll bring in, thought leadership around building ideas and making them real. I think what makes this journey maybe a little bit unique is is the component of every dollar being traceable to impact and not necessarily coming back for profit. And I think that's the difference. And so if that's interesting to you, then I think that this is a great community to come play ball in and to come and see what God awakens in your heart to make impact in the world.
Awesome.
How is this just different than volunteering at my local soup kitchen that's already a venture that's building impact? How is this different than volunteering at my church? If there is no benefit to me, then am I just a volunteer? And how is just being a volunteer different than volunteering here? Why should I volunteer in Kicks?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think the answers are, well, one, Jesus didn't call us to do anything because something was in it for me. Like it was always about what's in it for him. And what's
Yeah,
in it for me is being obedient to the call of God. He said, if you see people in practical need and you don't help them and you have the capacity to help them, like that's a problem. He said it,
yeah,
Isaiah said it, James said it, like it's all the way through. So I think there's an obedience issue here. There are ways you as a high capacity person can help more people than you are currently helping. And within the framework of what you currently have around you, we're trying to say, we're giving you the whole world and all these different ways you can help people. Whereas right now you're in a small bubble geographically within the confines of your church, and everything else. Not that those things aren't valuable, but there's other people that could fill the role you're filling if you're helping in a soup kitchen. But there aren't other people that could take your 20 years of business knowledge and go out and create an economic engine in sub-Saharan Africa that's going to create agricultural things that don't exist right now, and it's going to create healthy food for people to eat, and create clean water opportunities for people to drink. And so I think that's that first kind of element that my mind goes to. I think secondarily, there absolutely is something in it for you. It's your walk with Jesus. It's your proximity to God. When you get involved in the future that He laid out for you, when you step in and say, "Yeah, I'm ready for those good works. Let's go." Like it's like starting a new business. When I started this, I knew nothing about office space. I knew nothing about co-working wasn't even a thing. I just wanted somewhere to work and I didn't want to go pay someone else a bunch of money for a crap office. So I figured I'd go build one on my own. 10 years later, I know all about commercial construction. I know all about flexible office space. Like I've grown individually. That growth gives me more knowledge that I can now go do other things with. It's helped me buy a crazy house in Franklin, Tennessee, and go rebuild it. And now I'll sell it and we'll make a couple of dollars. And more importantly, I had an incredible adventure along the way. The adventure was what it was about, not the money. Like that's satisfying for my soul. That's all because of what God helped me step into when I started this co-working thing and had to get my hands dirty in construction. So for somebody listening, I think I would say the same thing. Like although the motivation shouldn't be what's in it for me, because if it is, that's selfish and that's a theological problem, and you've got an issue with your relationship with Jesus. I don't think what's in it for me when I want to do something nice for my wife. I love her and want her to feel special because she is my best friend. She's a person I enjoy spending the most amount of time with. And anything I can do to make her life better, to make her happier, to make her brighter, I want to do because my love for her draws me to do that. I don't sit there and think, but if I buy her a fancy necklace, will she buy me one back? Like, you've got an issue with your understanding of love at that point. And aside from all that, there are still those benefits for us, right? We grow in the natural, we grow supernaturally and spiritually because we will learn to depend on him more. We're going to place ourselves in positions where, dude, we get to see God show up. We're going to
Mhm.
get to see miracles happen. We're going to get to
Yeah.
see prayers get answered. That's going to just revitalize our faith. That's going to mean that as a parent, I can be a better role model for my kids. They're going to be able to see God moving in these things that I'm doing, and their understanding of God is going to be so much fuller. Their theology is going to be so much more developed because they saw mom and dad taking these steps of faith and willing to put themselves out there and do things that just make no sense in the natural. Sorry, I'm kind of, going on a rabbit trail here, but yeah, I mean, I think those are the things that just straight from the hip just shoot for me. There's so much in it for you. I think the better question is, can you afford not to get involved in this if you have been blessed and put in a place where you've seen success in your life? Because actually, this could be God literally giving you that one more chance to say, okay, you don't want to do it by yourself. Let me give you an infrastructure where you can step into this and do it. And if we still want to rebel and be like really just, well, no, I'm not getting involved in that because I've got to own it. I've got to do it all myself. I'm not going to go play ball with other people. Or I don't like the sound of this. Like, I don't need to do anything. I give my tithe check and that's all I need to give. I mean, dude, I don't even know what to tell you, but I sure hope we see each other one day in heaven. I'm not going to put money on it, but I sure hope we do.
Yeah. That's awesome. People have been building schools in Africa, as an example, for years, decades, hundreds of years, centuries. Like, are we arguing that like what's been done isn't working, or are we saying we reverse engineered what they did and we're building a model similar to that that will continue to work? Because I could see people listening going like, well, what's wrong with giving? I would I would raise $3 million and we would just fund the teacher salaries. We would fund the construction. You'd have a project manager, somebody that would oversee and get the school launched, and then you would have to pay the staff to keep running that school because they're not going to make any money outside of that. So that's why we need $10 million, and we every year we'll raise another million and we'll keep that school going. And here's an example of a school that's been going for 50 years because of that model.
So
Am I asking something weird, or
no,
is
no, no.
that
I think you're asking a great question, right? And I think what you're asking is the old model that we're trying to replace. Because here's the problem, right? And there's a couple of problems. So one, you could do this by donation. You could say, I'm going to go build this school. We're going to go raise a bunch of money. We're going to be able to build a construction. We're going to raise enough money to run it for a year or 3 years or whatever. What happens at the end of that 3 years? Now you got to go and you got to raise donations again.
another million? Yeah.
Okay. But now that million is going to keep this school going instead of going to start a different project and do something else. Whereas if we could have created sustainability in this school, you wouldn't need the other million. Or even worse, what if you can't raise the other million and now the school shuts down?
Yeah.
So I think that's problem number one. I got a friend with a school, literally in Africa, right? This is real world, example. School's been there for nearly 20 years. My understanding is that for almost all 20 years, there's been a negative balance. And so they've had to keep putting money into it and keep funding it. Well, every one of those dollars then can't go to do something else to help someone
Yeah.
else. Now they've got it to a point of self-sustainability where they're not having to keep reinvesting over and over again, and it
How
can
did they
take
get
care of
it to that?
itself. And they did that through school fees for the kids, things that are typical ways you would raise money, right? If you don't charge for the kids to come in, you haven't got enough going out, and you got to keep kind
Yeah.
of footing the bill yourself. And they've kind of woken up to this idea that actually we can't run forever. We got to
Yeah.
figure out how to make these things run for themselves. What we're saying is that's awesome, and I'm glad you got there. But what if we could have got there on day one? What if we could have built it? And yes, we would have needed a capital injection to get it going. But if we could have had that self-sustainability from year one, year two, every one of those other 19 years, all that money could have been going into other things that also became self-sustaining. And we now have 20 projects that are running and self-sustaining, or 20 schools instead of one. So whichever way you look at it, the risk is it shuts down when the money stops, or you're going to have to find self-sustainability at some
Mhm.
point, or you're going to keep taking money in donations that then can't go to help someone else and do something else and deliver more impact. So I think that's where this model flips that on its head and says, actually, we want to do all the impact, right? We want to
Yeah.
do as much as we possibly can. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's the way I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I think theoretically it does.
Right.
Obviously we got to prove that out, but I think, yeah, theoretically it does.
Yeah, I remember we built some children's homes a few years ago. It's one of the first things we did. And the reason we stopped doing it is because I had a conversation with him. I said, okay, but like, how do you fund these things on an ongoing basis? Like,
Yeah.
is that going to be there in 5 years? Otherwise, what's the point of me paying for it? And I couldn't get good answers. Like, I just
Yeah.
couldn't get good answers. They didn't have them. And it was almost like that churchy's, well, God's just going to take care of it, right? It's going to be fine. We're going to pray and God's going to provide. Okay, dude, like, maybe I'm just the worst Christian on earth, but some days it doesn't feel like God's providing. Like I was on food stamps a while ago. I just borrowed money to pay the mortgage payment one day. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
not hating on God or anything, that's just a position we are in, but
Yeah.
that feels incredibly naive and incredibly risky to say when you've got 25 kids' lives that you're responsible for. Um, you need house parents, you need food, like the bills need to be paid. And so we just stopped. We just said, you know what? You all are sweet people, love what you're doing, but those aren't good answers to me. I need more than that. I need to know that in 5 and 10 years, that place will still be there. And I need to see a plan of how that happens before I'm
Yeah.
going to keep investing my money into this endeavor. And I think that was probably a precursor, to this conversation from 8 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Because I've always had these uneasy feelings that it's no good me feeling good about myself because I just wrote a check and built some clean water wells or built a school for some kids or whatever else. If those things won't be around in a few years' time, it was a
Mm.
temporary fix, and then those people are going straight back to the problems they had before. That's
Yeah.
not that's not love. That's not smart. I need to be able to deliver permanent fixes, because that's what Jesus did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if there's any, I mean, it's hard to argue that anything in business lasts
Right,
because we have evidence that it doesn't.
right.
But I do think that the heart behind what you're saying is right.
I mean, even if the stuff doesn't last forever. And even if we don't get the longevity that we want, we'll get more longevity, I believe, than relying on donations. I
Mhm.
think we'll get more predictability than relying on donations. And I think scaling up to begin with, again, the school in Uganda is a great example, right? To get that going needed $3 million.
Yeah.
But if we could have built it the way we were talking about, it would have been slower. I absolutely accept that. But we would have only needed $500,000. And the
Yeah.
rest would have come in through the profits that we generated through the economic engines. So
Yeah.
we would have needed less capital up front. If we had the other 2.5 mil, we could have deployed it somewhere else. If we didn't have it, it means the school exists instead of not existing
Yeah.
because of the way we structured getting it going. So, like, I really wrestle to see the negative in this approach, other than it takes a little bit more work and a little bit more effort, which I,
Yeah.
which I totally understand. You
Yeah.
know, but I also think the work and the effort is where we win, and that's actually where we get the growth, right? Because I mean, God worked, so
Yep.
we're designed to work. I don't think it's supposed to
Yeah,
be.
exactly. Totally. So what does this actually look like for us to get involved? What's the next step that someone should take to get involved? They're like, Mike, I'm in. I'm in on this. Let's go. What do I do?
Good question. I think the first thing and probably the best thing to do, head over to the website, letsgokicks.com, Kix, let's go kicks, all one word.com. You can find us on social as well at Let's Go Kicks. Right now, you can drop an email in and just register for interest. You're not committing to anything, you're not signing up for anything. We're still figuring some of these details out. We're close. We don't have it 100%. We're going to be launching in September 2025. If you're on the email list, we will send you updates, and we're going to launch with a live Zoom webinar where we're going to be able to present exactly what we think phase one looks like. and how we can get going, and then maybe a little bit about what phase 2 and 3 looks like. I can tell you this, at the moment, it looks like some kind of combination of an online platform where we're going to be able to build this community, stay together, communicate from us to you, you communicate within the community itself, and you to us as members. Again, very open, very transparent. We're not trying to build a hierarchical organization here. I think it's going to be a hybrid of that online and a little bit of real world offline, some kind of in-person workshops, events, places where we can start to come together. We can encourage each other. We can lift each other up. We can pray together. We can see what God's saying, and really just layer in the spiritual with the practical and just fuse those things together. That's the goal here. And ultimately see what God has to say about this stuff. But we believe God's speaking. We believe God's doing something here. We believe that this is potentially something that could literally go out and really meaningfully change the world. And we're excited about it. We want you to be excited about it. We want to see you in the community. Head over to letsgokicks.com, drop in that email. We're not going to spam you and send you 900 things. We're not going to try and sell you 1,500 courses. We just want to get to know you a little bit more and be friends and have you come into this circle and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Well, if you're still listening, then you're probably not content with just success. You're actually after significance, which is awesome, and we should be friends. So here's 3 key takeaways from today's conversation with Adam that I think you're going to love. Number 1, good works aren't just for the church. They're for me and you. You were created with good works in mind. That's what the Bible tells us. And those good works might look a little more like building a vocational school than volunteering in Sunday school, because the marketplace is a mission field. Number 2, writing a check is easy, but giving your time, your skill, your wisdom, your intelligence, your everything about you, utilizing your relationships with your vendors, your partners, your staff, everything connected to your business, that's where the real growth happens. And so Kicks is about inviting you into the work, not just funding it, so that you grow spiritually, so that you grow personally, and so that you grow relationally along the way. And ultimately, your walk with Jesus benefits. And finally, number 3, impact should outlive you. That's what we're shooting for. We're not trying to build temporary wins. We're trying to build economic engines that will sustain impact long after the donations dry up. That's the new model. That's the Kicks model. It's scalable, it's transparent, and it's built around a community of other entrepreneurs doing the same things. So, ready to learn more? Maybe get involved? Head over to letsgokicks.com.